Hey there, Benders! Welcome to Versus Series Shorts, the series where I take two characters and set them against each other in open combat. Today, we will pit King Bumi of the White Lotus against Ghazan, the lava bender from the Red Lotus. For this video, I will be observing these characters as they appear in the Last Airbender and Legend of Korra TV series, utilizing subsequent work like the Lost Adventure comics for King Bumi and the Legend of Korra art book for Ghazan. Though 112 years old, King Bumi was in miraculous health. Where most human men experience old man strength in their 50s and sometimes into their 60s, Bumi was still enjoying this phenomena for several more decades. But where did this strength come from? Perhaps it manifested from his inherent element. Earthbending was, after all, classified as a strong element with a strong style, and considering Bumi's physique, it could be attributed to the metaphysical weight of the boulders he bent. Ghazan, on the other hand, was just approaching middle age. His physique was average, nowhere near as lean as King Bumi, but he was marginally more dexterous. Where Bumi often augmented his agility through his earthbending, Ghazan had more bounce in his step, avoiding attacks through somersaults as well as stonewall earthbending tactics. That said, Bumi might have the advantage here. Sure, he wasn't as agile as the younger Ghazan, but it wouldn't be all that important in a pure physical bout. At some point, Ghazan would tire out and he would need to get his hands on Bumi, and his agility wasn't that overwhelming that he would completely subvert the king. And if he does get his hands on Bumi, it's unlikely the king would take kindly to that, utilizing his old man strength to his benefit, countering any wrestling techniques Ghazan might try to employ. King Bumi gets the edge for his physical attributes. King Bumi was quite possibly the best earthbender in the world, with a young Toph approaching at his heels. His raw power was extraordinary, bending large amounts of rock on the level of an avatar. He was also able to turn rock into quicksand in an instant, burrow through the ground like a badger mole, and on a more obscure level, he could bend Genomite, a crystal structure that grew over time. But most of all, he could do all of this without touching the ground, something all earthbenders were required to do. This indicates an innate and intimate connection with Earth, an expression of his elemental mastery. Ghazan was also a master earthbender, but nowhere near on the scale of Bumi. However, he did share some similarities with the Avatar, not by way of sheer scope, but by way of lava. Not only could he manipulate lava in its natural state, but he could also transform Earth into lava and then back again to Earth. And much like Bumi, at least with lava, he did not have to make contact with it. This form of power also illustrates elemental control. In a way, it's like Fiendfire from Harry Potter, where only the most powerful witches and wizards can control it. Likewise, it speaks volumes that Ghazan could create such destruction yet control it, such as when he brought down the walls of Ba Sing Se and the Northern Air Temple. He could also use lava in more precise ways, crafting lava shurikens, or more commonly known as ninja stars, for more exact cutting. As Fire Lord Zuko would say of Ghazan and the Red Lotus,
"Do you have any idea the power these criminals possess? Individually, they could take down any bender. Put them all together, they could take down the entire world."
While it's true Bumi is capable of far more amounts of earthbending, when fighting someone like Ghazan, he does run into a vital issue. When Ghazan fought Bolin for the first time, it quickly became apparent to the younger bender that his earthbending was counterintuitive to victory.
I can't beat this guy! It's like I'm giving him ammo! Wanna trade?
King Bumi would have the same problem. The scale of his bending could actually be turned against him. A large boulder countered and transformed into a flaming rock. And Bumi's other talents, like his ability to create quicksand, would have less of an effect against another earthbender, who can shift the earth as well. Though there is an argument that such an ability might be affected by willpower, which I would assume Bumi would have the advantage in, but this is not backed up by anything in the lore. By that same token, it's unclear the limits of Ghazan's own power. Could he really counter such massive attacks? Keep in mind, his lava bending was more exponential than instantly devastating. When he took down the wall of Ba Sing Se, he took out his foundations, letting it crumble on itself. And when he destroyed the Northern Air Temple, it took several minutes for the lava to spread. Bumi, on the other hand, could throw down a megaton boulder on Ghazan's head rather instantly. Ultimately for me, it's too close to call. Bumi has some crazy scale to his abilities, and Ghazan has an effective counter with his own form of devastation. For their bending abilities, there is no definitive edge. In the real world, King Bumi's form of earthbending was based around Hung-Gar Kung Fu. The southern Shaolin style was very grounded and strong like earthbending. Students of the style practiced low stances, balance was key, and a strong core was a must, much like the defensive stance of a basketball player. King Bumi was a huge fan of what he called neutral Jing, where positive Jing taught offense and attack, and negative Jing taught defense and retreat. Neutral Jing instructed waiting and listening, or in other words, doing nothing. He was all about surprise tactics, thinking outside the box, always remaining creative. We see this in his lessons to Aang and his retaking of Amashu, and is further personified by his perceived frailty, as he presented himself as nothing more than a decrepit old man, when really he was a force to be reckoned with. When taking on the Fire Nation, he exercised patience, hunkered down, and waited until the best opportunity arose. For Ghazan, his form of earth and lava bending related to the disciplines of Baji Quan, which was characterized by short-range elbow and shoulder strikes. It too was grounded, much like earthbending, but it differed from Hung-Gar in its elbow movements, which was less rigid and more fluid, identifying itself more with lava. Joaquim dos Santos, one of the directors of the series, added that each Book 3 villain had hybrid styles, picking up techniques as they traveled across the world. The style makes sense when considering that lava has the properties of both earth and water, so a technique that has both rigid footwork and fluid arm movement adds up. With all this in mind, Ghazan's more dexterous abilities seem to be directly correlated to the element of lava, and though he too was balanced and controlled like a proper earthbender, he certainly favored his positive Jing over his negative Jing, and he didn't express any kind of care for neutral Jing. His tactics were very forward and in your face. He made sure you responded to him, rather than waiting for you to make the first strike. King Bumi's form of tactics are well suited against Ghazan, where another earthbender might try to contend with simple earthbending attacks, supplying Ghazan with, quote, ammo. Bumi would fight him, indirectly, more out of the box. A less experienced earthbender, or another earthbender who might deal in positive Jing, might fall into Ghazan's molten trap. But Bumi would take a back seat. He would wait and listen. And like the mad genius he was, he would find an alternative angle to take Ghazan on. King Bumi gets the edge for his tactical abilities. If these respective members of the White and Red Lotus were to meet, who would come out on top? Let's set up this fight. Let's say it takes place in a common Earth Kingdom village. The following is a hypothetical explanation of the possible outcomes. The early fight would go to the opponent more likely to surprise or overwhelm the other. With this, it's rather equal. Ghazan's lava bending does have the chance to overtake and overwhelm Bumi, but Bumi's out-of-the-box and unorthodox tactics of neutral Jing could surprise Ghazan, forcing him to slip up. But Ghazan might have the slight advantage, as Bumi is unlikely to resort to creative thinking straight away. When fighting Aang, he initially used straightforward earthbending tactics as a setup to his more unconventional gambit. But the same can be said for Ghazan, who also starts his matches with earthbending. That said, it's also unlikely for Bumi to be taken out, considering his defensive prowess as an earthbender, but it would not be easy. In the mid-fight, his typical defensive rock walls will be turned into mini volcanoes, and the stones he would kick out would be metamorphosed into molten boulders. Again, Ghazan would take another slight edge, pressing his advantage with lava bending. Like Bolin would indicate, Bumi would just be supplying him with more and more ammo. The king would need to dig in deep into his positive Jing. Negative Jing defense would not hold up to lava bending, only evasion would keep him in the fight, if only just. King Bumi's best bet would be to turn on his positive Jing to 11, not only using his out-of-the-box tactics, burrowing underground to evade lava, or turning the ground to quicksand to slow Ghazan's assault, but also using his imposing strength with earth. pulling at the foundations of houses, he would simply make the effort of Ghazan's lava bending too difficult. Bumi might not be able to overwhelm Ghazan with a single enormous rock, but several will likely do the trick. It would take too much out of Ghazan to lava bend on such a scale, and his alternate abilities, like his lava ninja stars, is unlikely to penetrate King Bumi's defensive techniques. Bumi would take the overwhelming late advantage, overpowering Ghazan through his own tenacious assault, which to me, Ghazan has not showcased he can deal with. But the question is whether Bumi would end the engagement, or would Ghazan take his own life, as he did against Mako and Bolin. That scenario is a bit circumstantial, but I'm more inclined to say Bumi would outright defeat Ghazan. With no real ability to disable the lava bender in quicksand or a rock wall, his only choice would be to end Ghazan for good. And thus, after a 6-10 advantage, King Bumi of the White Lotus, the mad genius, would be the most likely victor. Of course, this is all my opinion, based on the lore of Avatar. Do you agree that King Bumi would take a majority victory, or do you believe the Red Lotus lava bender is the most likely victor? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, peace, love, and be water, my friends.